Welcome to You Need Art and Art Needs You, the conversation with Mathabo Tlali, proudly brought to you by the Global Creative Summit and AMPed Studios. Here on the show, we learn what it takes to be a creative who creates in Africa. Namhlanje, ndihamba ndodwa. I am interested in unpacking a matter that I feel affects the country where the creative sector is concerned, and it is a cautionary tale for the continent of Africa. Namhlanje, we will be speaking about how Makhanda, specifically the National Arts Festival, is a cautionary tale for Johannesburg. So the inspiration behind this conversation came when I went down to the National Arts Festival. Well, we took the time to go see what it takes to put on a festival. So around May, we went down to the Eastern Cape, myself and my team, and we explored the impact of the National Arts Festival from a social point of view. We also understood how now the National Arts Festival not only is a national treasure, a continental treasure, but it is a lifeline for the citizens of Makhanda. I have been reading for quite a while, and in the media, you often see the infrastructural decay that is synonymous with Makhanda, always conflating with the National Arts Festival, and we do not know the actual story of the National Arts Festival, quite literally being the project manager of the town of Makhanda through the Social Employment Fund, which is a short-term project under IDC where the citizens of this town come together to uplift it. We are quite aware of the issues that are in Makhanda, so beautifully expressed by Uzimasa Vabaza. I encourage you to watch his YouTube video where he really takes us through the infrastructural decay from the water issues to the potholes that are the size of ponds. But there is a story there that we do not speak about, how the creative sector in Makhanda is actually rebuilding the city pothole by pothole through funding and through active citizenry. This then made me think about Johannesburg. If you're going to Johannesburg, if you are traveling, let's say a suburb like Melville or a suburb like Randburg, if you go to our townships such as Soweto and Alex, the infrastructural decay is glaring there. And we see the kind of neglect that the city is experiencing. But in all of that, we see how creative practitioners and organizations are saying, this point and no further. The city of Johannesburg, we will rebuild through our strategies. We will rebuild in community with government. And the meat of the matter here, the point of this conversation, is to say that the creative sector is the lifeline to our livelihoods. It is a lifeline to our dignity. I often say that where there is creativity, there is safety. Where there is creativity, there is justice. Another example of this, if you go to East London, there is a suburb there called Quigney. And in that suburb, there is a restaurant that turns into a kind of music hub where you have artists coming there to perform in that street. Quigney is synonymous with unspeakable levels of crime. But on that specific street where House 87 is, we see children playing at 7 o'clock in the evening, at 8 o'clock in the evening. Not even the safest suburbs in South Africa can say that they see their children play with ease riding on bicycles. But because there is a venue where art is housed and people are there in their numbers, that environment becomes an environment of safety. So I want us to look at comparisons between Makhanda and Johannesburg. And I hope that these comparisons really demystify this idea that, we will never be like Makhanda. Because Makhanda now is treated as though it is this cesspool of corruption, not looking at the fact that this characteristic of corruption is replicating itself. It has replicated itself countrywide, and the creative sector is an intervention to many of these there's ailments within society from really taking over in a way that is unstoppable. There is power in the creative sector, and I want us to highlight this through our comparisons this podcast episode. So, Indawo Kuqala, the National Arts Festival, 51 years running strong, the flagship festival on the continent of Africa. We see it as a multimedia festival, the only multimedia festival that has run this long in the country. This year, the most harrowing news came to our attention that the National Arts Festival was not in the funding role from a government point of view. And this was completely shocking, knowing that the impact of the festival is far running beyond just the 11 days that we enjoy various art forms, from music to theater to dance to visual art to literature. And also there are elements of digital media that are making their way into the festival. Now, if we are going to have Africa's flagship festival neglected on a government point of view, my question is then, how do we as artists then believe that we can be supported, right? If the National Arts Festival is currently campaigning for understanding as to why the funding role does not include them, and many other festivals such as the Open Book Festival, which is a festival targeted towards literacy. And we see the harrowing stats around literacy in South Africa, where 80% of grade 4s, 10-year-olds, okay? I want us to situate the stat here. 80% of 10-year-olds in this country cannot read for meaning, and yet festivals that are centered around literacy are struggling to find financial backing to forward the literature, cognitive stretching, because that's what literature does. It stretches our cognitive abilities. People are struggling to keep these institutions alive that affirm our humanity, that advance us as a society. Art, good people, we might not have the same access to education, but through creativity, we are able to create equity where knowledge is concerned. I'll make an example of this when we are looking at the liberation movement and the role of musicians, the role of photographers, the role of authors in telling the South African story in a way that reflected the struggle of Black and non-white individuals. We could not all understand the liberation movement from an academic point of view. So we needed artists to be intermediaries, to be able to take this very, well, it's not even dense knowledge, honestly, it's liberation, it's movement, but sometimes academia has a thing of creating barriers between people who gets to have knowledge, who gets to engage knowledge, and how we engage this knowledge, right? It's a language state, it's a thing of a lexicon, right? Artists come in and they make this very important information accessible to everyone. That is the value of artists in our society. And what is really painful and quite bizarre is that as key members of the liberation movement, now that we have had our political liberation, the creative sector is not on the agenda when the rebuilding of a new South Africa is being formed, right? We are not seeing policies that protect the creative industry as a fully functional industry. We are maligned where policies are concerned. We are relegated to gig workers where the likes of Omamunandi Nyembe now have to come on our screen, our proverbial digital screens, begging for support. These are people who have been working. I always make this example between Umamunandi Nyembe, for instance, and a parliamentarian who's also in their 70s. The parliamentarian, through the work that they do, have a safety net financially, but a cultural worker such as Umamunandi Nyembe, who quite literally raised us in understanding ourselves as Black children in the new South Africa, people who have watched Kidio when children's programming was still prioritized in our country, will know the role that Umamunandi Nyembe has played from childhood development all the way through to speaking to the country at large through the movies and the media that she has been a part of. My issue is this legacy of not prioritizing the creative sector now has multiplied, and it has become monumental in the year 2025, where the National Arts Festival is not being supported. So what happens then when the flagship festival of the continent is not good enough, essentially, for creative support? What is the messaging there when we are not even seeing members at national level within the arts and culture department being present at the actual festival? What then are the conversations that can facilitate for this festival to thrive in a town where we see institutional and infrastructural decay? The National Arts Festival is a thing that we like to forget. We only think about when we are interested in criticizing it. And the media has a huge role in conflating the infrastructural issues with the value of the festival itself. But let us move on to how the National Arts Festival depicts what could be the future of Johannesburg. Johannesburg is the hub of creativity in this country. When people come to Johannesburg, you often see, especially in creative metropoles such as Bloemfontein, especially in creative metropoles such as Auckland Park and Randburg, and our growing metropole, a creative metropole in Rosebank, people are here wanting to express themselves through their craft. But if you are going to look at the strategies that are set versus also the infrastructural decay that we are witnessing, potholes the size of ponds across Melville, across Randburg, you can cite other suburbs and regions within the province of Gauteng. My question is, how different is Makhanda from Johannesburg? I say this because I do not want us to think that in us wanting to rebuild Johannesburg, there are fantastic organizations in this here town, much like the Social Employment Fund that is in Makhanda. In Johannesburg, we have Josie My Josie as an example, that are saying that this city is our city, we love it. This is our city where we thrive. This is our city where we also get to meet the world through our environment. We are saying this point and no further. We are taking our city back. There are various campaigns that involve creatives in making sure that that city Johannesburg, I don't even think we are interested in having the city of Johannesburg go back to its former glory. We're not interested in that. We want Johannesburg to depict the heart and conviction of creatives today. We want Johannesburg to depict the heart and the convictions of citizens today, right? So I want us to think closely and quite critically about what it means to save one province whilst other provinces are also experiencing the same issue. It is not purely freedom if we are not all free. Because this disease of corruption, this disease of neglect, this disease that is having individuals within the creative sector on a policy and governmental level who are not creative practitioners themselves, nor are they creative strategies, making laws and decisions for the creative sector as a whole, where does that leave us? If these corrupt ways of being and negligent ways of being. Sometimes I think we use the word corruption loosely, not thinking about how negligence is the entryway towards corruption. And how does negligence look like? Having Mathabo appointed at a particular role within the creative sector, but she has no background, she has no understanding, she has no conviction, she has no rep sheet telling us that on a strategic point of view, she can speak back to the sector. And yet she needs to create programs and facilitate funds that make sure that the constituents that she's meant to serve get to engage the sector in meaningful ways. Negligence becomes the entryway of corruption because with the lack of knowledge, I am then vulnerable to anyone who wants to come in and do this, that, and the third in ways that that really destabilize the sector. So I want us to really think about the strategies that we are implementing on a provincial level, on a city level, as in the case of Makhanda, and think, how can these strategies replicate themselves countrywide? How can the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, the Northwest, Johannesburg, Durban, all these creative sector spaces within the 9 provinces, how do we speak together in order to say, this is our national strategy? This is a national strategy that can also replicate itself on a continental level to say, no further. We are taking back our country. We are taking back our continent. And we are having the creative sector recognized in the strategies of rehabilitating this place we call home. This continent is our home. I'm calling on to creative strategists. I'm calling on to lobbyists. I'm calling on to policymakers to think beyond just the strategies that are going to impact the city, the town, the provinces that are in. I think it's quite ironic that a sector that is rooted in community at times when we are approaching solution-making mechanisms, we are so fragmented, highly fragmented. And thanks to digitization, I think that kind of fragmentation can be lessened in incredible ways. I'm saying all of this to say that the kind of infrastructural decay and the neglect that we are seeing the National Arts Festival experience, you as a creative who is watching this, the statement here is, you too are not safe. If a festival of 51 years can struggle to get backing with no tangible reason, the only reason and excuse we are hearing is, there are issues that we still need to see within the festival. What are those issues? We need to hear them too. The festival doesn't belong to a board. It doesn't belong to the organizers. It belongs to every single South African. Right? It is the lifeline. It is the bridge between us experiencing the creative sector in such a dynamic way. One city, 11 days, you get to experience visual arts. You get to experience music. You get to experience theater. You get to experience thought leadership in a way like no other. A small town of a constituent of 120,000, making room and home for creatives all over the world to share their work. This space is an important space, especially for a rural, inverted commas, and please see the inverted commas, don't get touched in your studio, a rural province such as the Eastern Cape, and how the creative sector in the Eastern Cape is effectively unseen or unheard of until the National Arts Festival. A town that can generate 4.5 million rand per year in that one season. What does it mean when a festival is neglected on an economic point of view, a socio-political point of view? What happens to the members of Makhanda who are already experiencing infrastructural decay and state neglect? Honestly, it's state neglect. The only reason why we even speak about Makhanda is because of one creative institution. The reason why we speak about Quickney, not as a hub of crime, but also a site of hope, a site of creativity, it is because of one space, House 87, which is a creative hub. The reason why Johannesburg is not a place where we would choose to neglect, walk away from, it is because of the creative metropoles that still exist here, that are unrelenting. The creative sector is a lifeline to our humanity. Where there's creativity, there is safety. And based on this episode, where there's creativity, there is justice. So I really do encourage you to come to the Global Creative Summit, where 15 countries on the continent of Africa, will be speaking about cross-border collaboration that help foster our respective markets in the countries that we are in, where we can be of support to each other, where the creative sector is concerned. This is our first motion towards a borderless South Africa. For us to actively even imagine a borderless Africa has come through creativity, through music, through art, through fashion, through TV, through film, through broadcasting. This is a time for us all to come together to have our voices heard. Please follow the link below. Get your ticket. We have members of the creative sector on this continent who are really doing the work on the ground, on a policy level, who are experts in their field through the work that they produce. This is not a talk shop. This is us building our table. This is in light of G20. We'll never know if we'll ever have this opportunity to have the world here like they're going to be during the G20 Summit. So we are leveraging on this moment to say, Africa, we know that it is your time, but it is also your opportunity to really have a say and also have access to the kind of resources that take you forward. And we'll never have this conversation in isolation as one or two countries. So please, 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 please do buy your tickets. It is the Global Creative Summit across all social media networks. And we thank the Global Creative Summit for supporting the You Need Art and Art Needs You conversation series. I am Mathabo Tlali. You can follow me on social media. It is at Mathabo_Tlali. And it is also at Zazi_creative. I hope this interview, well, it's not an interview, but the show, this episode inspires you, creative, who feels that maybe, life is good for you right now. You don't have to be in proximity in these heavy conversations. I'm telling you, the same way that there is state neglect in Makhanda and the National Arts Festival is the saving grace of that town, the city of creativity, it is the same way where the creative sector is the lifeline of every single province in this country. And by extension, the continent at large. The creative sector is our lifeline. And I really hope that you take the opportunity to think about yourself as a practitioner, to think about yourself as a member of this continent, and make your voice heard and counted beyond you selling things to people, beyond you wanting people to engage your art. Let your voice build this continent. One voice at a time, one expert at a time, one creative at a time, one stakeholder at a time. I will see you at the Global Creative Summit, and please do catch our next episode where we will be speaking to experts on the African continent about the creative sector, where we learn what it takes to be a creative who creates in Africa. It's Mathabo Tlali, and remember that you need art and art needs you.